Hi, I'm Michael Allison. I'm the Commercial Director at Roma Finance. Thank you so much for joining our webinar today, where we will be discussing technology within the property finance space. And we will have two lenses. We'll have it from a lender, and we'll also be able to talk as well about the user who are using either finance or all the different options that's available to them. So just moving through. Next slide, please. I think I've always wanted to say that since COVID, so hopefully that should change the slide as well. There it is. So yeah, a bit about myself. I'm the commercial director at Roma Finance. I've been here for 4 years. As part of that period, I joined for the growth of Roma, and we've been on a fantastic growth journey since, and before that actually as well. During the time we 5x'd our loan book, but a lot of the investment that's gone into the business has been on people, on process improvements, and in technology as well. So as we go through, there are opportunities to ask questions. I think there's a questions box that you're able to do. I'll be asking a couple of questions in a poll as well that we've got. I think it works. That's about as good as my technology reach will get today. I'm delighted to be joined, first of all, introducing Chris Tremlett from UK Homes Network. It should just flick onto Chris's slide now seamlessly. There he is. We'll get a different picture for next time, Chris. I'll let you introduce yourself if you'd like to.
Hi guys, yeah, I'm Chris. I'm the co-founder of UK Homes Network. We're a relatively new business. We launched in January of last year. We are the UK's first social media platform exclusively for the property industry. And I'm really excited to be here. Roma have been one of our partners right from the off, and supported us right from when we had only 25 members in the platform. And obviously we've grown quite a lot since then. So really excited to be on the call with everyone today.
Very much, Chris. And also joining us today from Roma, we've got our business architect, Adam Bates, and there he is. Adam, just an introduction from yourself, please.
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm the business architect at Roma. So my job is solely to help the business align its strategy by helping it with technology and process improvements for looking for opportunities to streamline things and make things quicker and easier for both colleagues and customers.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Adam. So we'll just have a quick look over some of the key things that we're going to look to get from today. We will be looking at the impact of property finance, or the impact of technology on property finance processes, some of the trends that we're seeing internally as a lender and externally that Chris is seeing as well in that wider space. We will get onto the subject of AI. I don't think you can have a webinar these days without saying AI, even if it's an AI generated webinar itself. There will be a discussion around AI and about embracing it within the processes. There has been a rise in digital platforms. I'm really keen to explore that as well, because people are entering the property investment journey at different stages of life now. So it's how are they embracing technology? And also we'll have a look at some of those future trends as well. Just what the panel think and what kind of things they can see moving out there. So before we start, moving on to the next slide, we're just going to have a quick poll for everybody in attendance, if that's okay. And we are going to get stuck into the AI piece. And do you feel that AI will help or hinder financial services? So you should have the opportunity now to just cast your vote, hopefully. If not, we might have to do it by AI, I think. So do you feel that it is? So we've got no votes yet, so don't be shy. There we go, straight in. Well, I think it's, yeah. Brilliant. So we're getting on a call, and obviously those results could continue to go in. But we're on a call today with people who feel that AI has the opportunity to help financial services. Okay, so let's move on. Let's have a discussion with the people you actually came to listen to, which isn't myself. Let's move on to the next slide, please. And what we're looking for is the impact of technology on property finance. So Adam, your role in Roma, as you explained before, was largely related to improvements for us with that insular lens and our customers when they touch us as well. What do you see as being the impact of technology on the processes at a lender?
I think, technology has moved on and continues to move on at such a quick pace, and obviously my lens is very much on Roma Finance and how we sort of navigate that. But I think for us, we have to, look at sort of three different areas. I think the first is the wider kind of lending market, so where consumer lenders are, the sort of new businesses coming to market, the fintechs, the type of sort of more suited to automated decisioning, and sort of taking it out of sort of humans making decisions. I think this has been around for a really long time, and a really interesting example for both the pros and cons of this are the payday lenders. So not necessarily the space that we were in, but they were able to process mass amounts of applications, lend a huge amount of money without any human interaction, and that was beneficial for them because it was cheap, it was cost effective to service loans, and for customers because they were getting quick decisions. But on the flip side of that as well, because of the lack of controls and the focus purely on automation, it meant that they were in a situation where they weren't lending to the right people. They didn't know their customers and they didn't know the full backgrounds. And I think I always think of that as a really interesting, use case for technology to find that right balance moving forward. Within the kind of property finance space, we've got obviously sort of quite a big split down the middle between retail and sort of the regulated arm of the property lending space, which has probably adapted quite well to technology over time in terms of making decisions based on the data and historical things. You can get a large personal mortgage now on a property without evaluation, and these big institutions have sort of manage their risk accordingly to be able to offer that service. I still got evaluation when I got my house just to make sure, but the options there for a much smoother the customer journey. In the commercial space, I think it's a really interesting one, because I think if you asked me 5 years ago, I think we were in a very different space with commercial lending. Where I think there was quite an old school attitude of, well, the customer gets what they get. I think there was a big kind of gap in terms of the service that we were providing customers, and the attitude, is the way things are, and customers don't expect to have the access to the finance and the information that they would do with the other two that we spoke about. But those three bubbles aren't in isolation, and what you have is when people are doing this for a business, they look at their personal side and say, well, I've got a Monzo app that gives me all of this information and all of this flexibility. So why would I not expect that for something that is so integral part of me and my future, and doing that? And so I think that us as an industry has moved forward quite a lot in the last 5 years to re-honing that. But using the payday loaning example, it's the balance between technology and that personal experience. And if you're making technology changes solely for your own efficiencies, and not focusing it on the borrower, I think you're going to end up sort of down a road where you're not getting the ultimate benefit from it, because by improving the customer journey with technology and the way that the customers interact with you, that's where you're going to get the benefit from the technology and the repeat customers and borrowers.
What's interesting, when a customer looks at your technology stack, they're not actually comparing it with what you did before or your competitors in that space. They compare it to every time they use technology, don't they? They compare, why can't it do this like I do when I order a pizza at Domino's, or when I buy something on Spotify, or whatever that may be. Chris, obviously that external lens, how do you see property finance processes being impacted by tech?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting because property finance straddles two industries. It straddles finance and it straddles property. And I like to see finance as kind of the older brother to property, in the sense that finance has been around a lot longer than the sort of the property market has. And with that, there's been an influx of new technologies, or the fintech space, that has really applied pressure on the property finance sector to improve their systems and processes internally. And I think property as an industry, we pride ourselves on being on a people business, and from people we drive trust by looking into the eyes of the person that we want to do a deal with, by sourcing their body language, working out whether this person is the right person I want to work with. So I think from a property perspective, we've been a little bit slower to adopt new technology in terms of moving forward, because there is always that reassurance when you look into the whites of someone's eyes, whether they're, a bit shifty, or whether they look like they're going to stand up on the deal and follow up on their part. But not many people know this. I was a marketing manager for a while at a property finance broker, and those guys had actually built a CRM system out the back of WordPress and spreadsheets, and it was not a great platform to use, and it was quite evident that it wasn't servicing customers well. And their competitors, who all had the technology and the right systems and processes in place from a tech stack basis, were serving customers in the right way, because they had automated messages, emails, all the contact points that were making sure that the client felt as though that they were being in regular contact with the lender, or with the broker. And although technology does remove some of the customer facing or people element of it, it actually just remains that level of trust with the individual client, that you are consistently working on something, and that you're all moving towards the same goal. So I'd say that technology has taken massive advances in, as Adam says, the last 5 years. And some of that may have been down to the pressure of customer facing elements, like the payday lender element. But what I would also say is that there's a new generation of people, property professionals, coming through that have been exposed to the YouTube. They are the YouTube generation, and therefore won't tolerate having what I like to have post-it notes, or notebooks where they literally write notes. It has to be a full tech stack just to operate their daily lives. And I think as we sort of progress forwards, that's going to have a massive impact on the way lenders and brokers work with their clients, because their clients are demanding more technology.
I think that's a really interesting point, and it's probably something that it goes even broader than the customer. It's internal colleagues as well at businesses, because the technology advancements in the last, nothing makes you feel older than technology and watching young people use it. And I'm not quite 50 yet, but I'm getting towards that. And I already watch my daughter and how she can operate stuff at 10 years older. I think I was using video recorders at her age. So the expectations of the people coming through, as you say, they want more information readily available, more, be informed more regularly, but how they want to be informed. So they will challenge it all. You still got to balance that you've still got customers who are quite happy with a letter or an email or whatever the old school is. It's how do you keep that blended approach, really, isn't it?
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
regards to Adam, go on. I think you've got a point.
No, I was just going to say one thing that we've spoken about within Roma and adopting new technologies is I think, adding to kind of Chris's point about different people operate in different ways. In gamification is a big thing that we talk about in terms of colleagues and workload and tasks and things like that. But I think it's the same with everyone. Everyone's got a big list of things that they do, and they get satisfaction from ticking things off. And especially the type of lending that we do, which we obviously do the sort of our flow bridging, but the development side of it, where they are complex and there's lots of things to do, and there is back and forth, and it's trying to remove any of that sort of friction and the element of, like, I don't want to do that today, but to get it done, and the rewards for doing so, and allowing technology to support that how the customer wants to.
I think one of the things that's missing, obviously, I think you articulated really well before, Chris, is that you got finance, you got property, and finance is pretty standard, really, depending on what type of transaction you want to do. Property is, people buying a house, looking for a house, but in the middle, there's still the support services, and there's still lawyers, land registry, and they have become probably and valuations as well. I know we alluded to some of the other stuff, but a value going out to take pictures and measure it and write it down and give you a report. We've still got some archaic processes on which both of those, either the finance and the property and people buying property, we're still reliant on other industries within the property and finance space catching up on technology, and sometimes that's the bit that can hold us back, isn't it?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think one of the main concerns that I get when I speak to people, particularly because obviously we're UK Homes Network, we're an app and a web-based platform,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of experienced people in the industry that are sort of reserved about adopting new technology, particularly when they've got very long careers where they've done things very successfully over a long period of time. And the main concern I get is, oh, I'm not very good with technology, or I don't really use social media. I feel a little bit adverse to it. And the one thing that I'd say is that if you are having that feeling, the the technology that's being adopted at the moment doesn't stick, particularly from a business to consumer perspective, unless it's simple and it's easy for all to use. It's inclusive of all age ranges to use that technology. Now, of course, in the back end with Roma and you guys might be using some quite complicated systems and processes to find the best um, opportunities for people, and the data points might be quite complicated for the average developer to look at. But on the surface, that technology is not going to be adopted by your customers unless it's easy from a customer focus perspective. And I think that's one of the sort of hurdles we need to overcome as an industry, is that yes, technology is being adopted, but it's not going to fly with many people unless it's nice and easy to use.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point, that, and I think an example of that is open banking. Open banking is an incredibly powerful tool to for both ourselves as a lender, but for borrowers, and but it's having a slow take up because of we've been told for a very long time, you be very careful on banking apps, be very careful of who you share your data to, and then on the flip side we're saying, oh, press this button and we can dip into your bank account and take out this money, or you can send this with 2 clicks, and it's going to be interesting for using sort of the open banking thought process of whether in the next sort of 5-10 years that will get a lot of traction as people get more used to the banks checking your mortgage on a different provider's bank account and things like that, or whether people will still be very reserved when it comes to money. You said it's one of the oldest professions in terms of being around for a very long time, and people are very protective over it. But if there isn't that adoption there, then that technology won't be developed on. We don't really know what the next phase or the phase after for open banking will be, because if you say, like you say, if people don't adopt it, people don't trust it, people don't find it easy to use or fully understand it, and it can be quite complex, then people just won't use it and they'll just stick to the methods they know. And therefore, as a business, we have to balance what resource we put into what, and we'll probably go into this a lot more when we talk about the AI side of it, because you could spend an awful lot of money on technology and not get a lot back. And I think it's how you approach that's really important.
Good. Well, let's move on to the next slide, because I think there's some really good discussion points I'd like to explore more, and that is about, you touched on it there, Adam, and we'll go even more detail about AI next. But there is a big rise in apps for customers to be able to source properties, engage with other property professionals, even get quotations for work. There's been a big rise of that, where it almost feels like everyone's trying to fulfill a niche within a marketplace to buy and build it. Just wondering, Chris, how do you see that? Is there an opportunity for someone to almost pull all that together into a singular view, rather than think I've got 10 apps for charging up my car, I've got 10 apps for watching television. I'm awash with all these apps, and sometimes it's about remembering. Is there an opportunity to bring it all together for property, do you feel?
Yes and no. I think that if we were to bring all those, I think if you were to bring every element of property together, you are going to overinflate the app and potentially not make it as simple as what we've talked about. But yeah, certainly there needs to be some joining dots of the technology that we currently have. There is some quite niche focuses within the apps that I'm seeing that could do more for their customers by adopting new data points or bringing in other information that might be available in another app. But I think that when you're out there doing a development, whether it's class MA or a commercial conversion, or you're doing something along those lines, that experience that you're going to have doing that project is going to be completely unique to you, and the pain points you're going to go through can't necessarily be replicated for every single developer that's doing a class MA project up and down the country. So therefore, you would struggle to find an app that is going to service all those individual needs. So it might not necessarily be a great point to try and consolidate everything into one app. I think that's why with ours, we've heavily focused on the networking and the connections element within the app, rather than trying to chuck in new tools and data points that might not necessarily be relevant. But also, we've got server costs to think of, so if you're going to start putting stuff into the app that's not necessarily going to be used or not relevant, it's just going to bump up your server costs, and then that cost then has to be relayed to the customer, so it doesn't then become a very cheap piece of technology that everyone will want to use.
So really, it's about finding what you're good at or what you're looking to deliver and focusing on that above all else. So I suppose what you're saying is where people can fall foul is when they try and fix every problem all at once, but in the same way. Flipping that on its head, Adam, how do you do that when you've got a process to run for a business where you're trying to streamline it and push customers through?
I think you, with all technology, it's about looking for the sort of the low hanging fruit first. And what we found is that a lot of the improvements that we can get is process first, understanding the process, understand why you do it, and having a company that's willing to question things and question things in the right way, and embrace change. Like Chris says, there's not a kind of cookie cutter way that each one of our customers goes through their journey. And we'll probably touch on this when we get to the AI and the machine learning side of it. But if you have 100,000 of those customers going through their unique journey, then you can start finding the points through it. But it has to be on a large scale data gathering before you can start getting that. So I think it's understanding the processes and understanding the pain points. And sometimes the pain points aren't the things that you think they are. You might think it's to do with a bottleneck within a manual process, but actually, that's masking something else. And so it's truly getting to the bottom of it. And Chris's point about different services offering different things is really interesting, because you could have this, if you look for a decision making system out there, there's hundreds of them, and so it's like, how does this fit in with the other technology that you've got? And actually, where we need to be going in as an industry is getting the data quality right, so that data can move seamlessly between the applications, and not necessarily all sitting within one application, but being able to transfer that data across, so you're getting that meaning, and being able to assist each other. And that's where we are moving forward from a Roma point of view, is bringing in some of these older institutions, the Companies House, the Land Registry, and we're looking on excitedly with Land Registry going through their digitalization process to see actually what comes out of it, but how user friendly it is for us to connect to it. So that's kind of interesting in terms of where the industry is going.
Just on that, Adam, I found it really interesting that you guys are basically taking existing products and services and then adding value to what it is that you offer with those data points from Companies House and sort of various other data points. We made a massive mistake in our first launch, which is that we tried to be everything to everyone. And that's where it then has a knock-on effect, not just on the technology side, but also your marketing as a business, because you're then struggling to define to your customer what it is you actually do. And I think with the way you guys have gone about it, is you've taken very successful products and then added more value and information based on those products to those customers because you know that they want them. Whereas if we go back to sort of the point you raised, Michael, at the start, was, if we consolidate all those apps without there necessarily being a specific requirement for that, how do you communicate that to your audience that you're looking to solve all those problems in one go when there are so many problems?
Yeah, I
it's
think I
about
think
that.
our biggest focus is, I think we've identified a need to be updating our technology stack, and we identified that need a few years ago. What we've been actually focusing on more so in the last 2 years is building the data foundation first. So Nathan Kenny came in as our the head of director and technology, and what the focus has been driven almost singly focused on is what is data, where does it sit, how do we use it, and actually as a result of that we are now sort of bearing the fruits of that, where we are making decisions based on data. And going back to what we were saying before about that personal feel, that is absolutely crucial in our business. We should never be losing that gut instinct, that gut feel. However, what we're finding now is that the data is allowing us to be asking the right questions when it comes to that. So you're asking about the gut feel on the right questions, not the way that things have always been. And it's been a really interesting journey for us to be looking at the business in different ways, and now being able to kind of almost poke it and probe it and sort of go, well, actually, we always thought that this was the most important thing for our customers, but actually the data is bearing out differently, looking at repeat customers and at what point that people take drawdowns, and all of that sort of stuff helps guide our service moving forward. Actually, if borrowers are taking drawdowns traditionally at this point, well, if they've not taken it by that point, well, what assistance do they need? Is that looking at being given more support? Should we go and visit them? There's the focus has been on getting that sort of data level right first, and now we're in a position that actually we are going to be replacing some of our legacy systems, knowing what we want out of those and how that can move us forward to the next phase.
Can I just make a point there? But what was really interesting is that you mentioned 2 years. So it's took us 2 years to get to this point. If you think of how much stuff has changed in technology in the last 2 years, and AI being part of that, and the machine learning, etc., it's about, back to, I think, again, a blend of what you're both saying. It's trying to understand what you're trying to fix or offer before you offer or fix something, isn't it? And it's making sure you land there with a platform or an end use that really is needed from your business or for your customers. Because we could have put a lending system in 2 years ago,
Yep.
surely. But what you're
Yeah.
saying, it's a data foundation. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And understanding the integrations of what we need from other people and how that connects through as well.
Cool. Chris, can I just ask you a question before we move into AI? As somebody who's obviously entrepreneurial and you lead it, you're a market leader in what you do within the property space, certainly when it comes to the ability for people to network, learning the lessons of what doesn't go well on Facebook and LinkedIn and putting it into UK Homes Network, which is obviously really key. How much does things like the tariffs that we saw last week and the crash of the stock market for a little period of time, and the worries about where the data's stored and geopolitical stuff, how much does that affect you as a business owner, an entrepreneur in this space?
I'll let you know in August when my year accounts are due. But I think the property industry, we're quite resilient with this sort of stuff. I'm of the opinion that the stuff going on with the tariffs and how that's affecting the wider market, we probably won't see that affect us too heavily, at least for 12 months on the ground level. But that being said, I'm I don't know whether this is me being naive or just optimistic. I think that this is all smoke and mirrors. I think there is a game being played on a large geopolitical scale to try and get to see who's going to bite first in terms of who's going to drop their tariffs first. And I think that the immediate people that are being affected by it are pulling their sales and pulling their trade until someone bites. And I don't know how long it's going to go on for, but certainly for us on the ground level and our customers and people that are using UK Homes Network, it's that classic British attitude of keep calm and carry on. And although I can imagine it's probably affecting the property finance sector in terms of what's being played out on the world stage a lot more heavily from the developer that's still got a project ongoing, and that is looking to assemble a power team, or for a mortgage advisor or a surveyor that's looking to network with other people in their local area for our platform. It doesn't necessarily have seen any sort of major effect, but there's people talking about it and posting about it in our platform, and some really interesting opinions coming off the back of it.
And then for you as well, I think I'm correct in saying the development of your software is onshore, not offshore. So the geopolitical, sometime with the cost of resource offshore, wouldn't necessarily affect you guys.
Yeah, I think that's really important for us, is we pride on being UK Homes Network, and our tech stack and our developers are based in the UK. That's not to throw shade on anyone that does decide to take their development, their service providers, abroad. But we understand the UK market, we understand what's happening, and we communicate very well with our developers in terms of what's happening with UK Homes Network, the app, and everything else. So from the conversations that we're constantly having, everything seems to be just carry on as normal. This shall pass, and we shall see, basically.
Good. Okay. So let's move it forward into AI then. So on to the next slide, if that's okay. So AI, is it more than just being able to make an action figure of yourself on ChatGPT and share it with the wider world on social media? What actually will AI bring to us in, let's keep it quite narrow for this one, but in the property and finance space?
So I think I think AI is such a big, wide topic, and we talk about AI, and I think it actually encompasses lots of smaller things. I think AI is artificial intelligence has been around for decades. We've seen it being used. I think I probably would have called it algorithms a few years ago. Being used within the finance world for risk assessment, for credit decisioning. We've seen it in the wider business sense. People like Netflix have honed their algorithms down and machine learning down to, you watch something and they suggest the next content is based on a huge amount of processing of data to moving forward. So, technology is moving fast. Why it's become the buzzword over the last few years is this sort of natural language element to it, so you can speak to it as if it's a being and it responds to us. It's not lost in data and code where it has been obviously for the last few decades. And I think it's interesting because on a wider piece of change happens when people find it tangible and they can understand it. It's going back to Chris's point on adoption of these technologies, is we're talking about it now because we can understand it and we can start pushing it to see where it can go. I think it's a really interesting space at the moment because it's still very much in its infancy, and it's going to be expanding and growing massively and changing. And I think there's excitement and caution to be had. I think we have to, it's the future, and we have to be assessing it and seeing where we can use it and where we can get the benefits from it. But it's also making sure that we're not making quick knee-jerk investments into things that may turn out to be not necessarily a fad, but not give us the long-term value that you might get from it. So it's that balance. There's lots of business out there that will take a lot of money from you to give you something that feels very exciting, but actually long term, is that what you need as a business, or do your customers actually need that? And I think the exciting part, for us is the machine learning part of it. But we are a growing business, and like I said before, you need lots and lots of data to be able to get real output from that. Otherwise, you might start getting results like, well, actually, every loan that funds on the second Tuesday of the month is a bad loan, and that doesn't give you the value that you need. So from my point of view, in terms of ourselves and the wider finance property, we're already using AI. We're already, especially on those simpler processes. It's a really exciting time, but there's also a kind of caution that comes with that to make sure that you're getting the value, because it can be expensive and those costs can spiral.
Thank you. Chris, what are your thoughts?
Well, I'll just caveat the fact that I use AI every single day consciously, and it has massively improved my life. But I think you'd expect me to sort of be very pro AI, whereas I have my property professional hat on, where I'm actually slightly cautious about AI. And you can say that's probably hypocritical of everything that I've just talked about over the last 35 minutes. I basically go around the country doing a talk on social media algorithms and how, as property professionals, we can navigate social media algorithms to make sure that our content and our personal brands are being placed in front of the right people. But the problem is that those algorithms aren't working out exactly what's relevant to what market in the way that they should be. And UK Homes Network is a direct response to social media platforms isolating people that actually want to connect with other people. Our platforms don't have algorithms in them. So when people post into the network, everyone is a verified property professional, therefore everyone should see that content because it's relevant. And this is the sort of the point you made about Netflix, Adam, is really interesting, because I still can't find anything I want to watch on Netflix, and I check it at least twice a night. And I think that's the same for a lot of people, is that if we start adopting AI, it's going to have massive benefits in sort of data points and systems and processes. But when it comes to actually deciding whether a site's viable and actually getting out on the ground and getting a feel for a place, that's why people are still resorting to that in-person connection. And I wonder how far AI can take that. Is there going to? It would almost need a level of consciousness to be able to determine how unpredictable we are as human beings, and how unpredictable our decision-making processes are. So, yeah, although AI has massively benefited me and my life, I'll just share this because it's not something I've ever talked about before, but we actually tried to adopt AI into UK Homes Network, and we were basically going to have a tool where people could share posts and get it to write content and give them information based on the property industry within the platform. The problem is that AI was the AI that we were using was so simplified. It would have taken us the best part of 3 years to train it specifically on the areas of the market that we wanted to talk about and the kind of content that that would be relevant to our audience. And even then, it's still got to keep on top of, it's got that learning element where it's got to keep on top of what's happening out in the market, and something that's relevant today might not be relevant tomorrow to our audience, or the information might be outdated. So from a project, we pulled that back about 4 months ago. We'll definitely revisit it because AI is helping people and it is benefiting people's lives. But the technology at the moment, I mean, I see it every day on social media. You can at least determine at least 10 posts in your feed that have purely been written by ChatGPT. And a little tear comes from my eye every time I see the word meaningful or fostering or connections or collaboration and the elongated hyphens that people forget to take out of their posts. And I'll finish up in a second, but I just think that with the rise of AI, some people are actually saying we're going to go back to a more direct sales route, because people are lacking that authenticity because they can't determine what's real and what's not. And I think that's what's benefiting us in UK Homes Network, is that when people are posting and sharing, you know that there's an authentic element to it and it's well received.
Yeah,
It's all about
two
finding.
points.
Oops, go on, you
I
jump
was
in
going to say
there,
two
Adam.
points. First of all, when you go on someone else's Netflix and you see what's suggested for them, it's an absolute thrill, isn't it? Because it's all these stuff that you haven't seen. And I think that does go back to what you said about the unpredictability. Is actually, just because I watched comedy yesterday doesn't mean that I don't want to watch an action film tonight. And I think that's the kind of, like you say, one of the things that needs to be ironed out before I can go further. I think AI will go back into the code more. So I think it'll end up becoming more powerful in the background, and where we might see it in terms of, the property side might be the supply of materials and better, sourcing and anticipating, a lot of stuff within the project is unpredictable, but there are probably certain touch points that need to go through, and it might be less of this kind of sort of flash fancy front end user stuff, but actually in the background getting, you know, pulling weather reports to see, well, actually there's bad weather coming in 3 weeks time, so we need to, it's all of that stuff that goes behind the scenes, and it's going to be interesting to see how that changes and grows moving forward. But it's great, the being able to almost talk to a human for things, but it does have its limitations, and it's making sure that there's more enough behind it, that it's not just a novelty.
Yeah, I think I'll just follow up on that. That Adam, that's such a good point, and I think that if businesses want to prepare for AI, they almost need to segment two parts of their business: one for conscious decision making, and one for AI decision making. So that if there's data points that can be used by AI to improve the business, that don't need that overseeing of a human to investigate whether the AI's worked correctly, would really help. And then obviously from the human element, if there's decisions that just simply a computer can't make, or the requirement in that scenario is to have human contact and have that authenticity, then I think that's one way that businesses can really help sort of project themselves for the next 5 to 10 years, by knowing exactly what in their business works with AI and what doesn't.
Absolutely, there's benefit to be had, but it's about making sure that it's controlled, and you're getting the benefit, and the customer is as well.
We go through these cycles though, don't we? I think years ago it was people didn't want to travel to branches anymore, so call centers were formed. So people would then ring call centers, then they got too many calls, so offshore call centers were formed. And then people say, well, actually, I really crave just being able to speak to somebody face to face. And it feels like now that you go to AI, and it could be all people will always crave, always comes back to, when we want a human interaction, we're always going to crave that. And the human touch in any relationship should be the intelligent touch. And that is that intelligence of, back to what you said before, Chris, on the AI. I made a good note. The AI doesn't know if you're in a bit of a mood today. And back to Adam's point, just because you watched the comedy yesterday doesn't mean you want to watch one today. Adam's never watched an action movie in his life, for the avoidance of doubt, so maybe using something else as an example next time. But it's creating a picture, a moment in time picture, or picture based on other people, what they did at that moment in time. We're complex individuals as humans, and certainly our mood can change on an hourly basis sometimes. So really interesting that it's all about that authenticity, is what I got from both of you whilst embracing it. Really good points. Enjoyed that. Can we move to the next slide, please? And there is a human in Manchester at the moment clicking it, as I'm in Livingston Town, speaking to somebody in Cheshire and somebody in the Midlands. So technology has got its enhancements. So we're on digital platforms is one of the things, and I think, Chris, this really goes into your wheelhouse. But we're seeing more and more, where I live at this moment in time, I think the last two remaining banks are closing. So there'll be no banks on the high street, which is good because that's regeneration of the high street, etc. And I talked about that in the last webinar, which, because we're moving more and more towards these digital platforms, the rise of that, how far do you see it going, Chris?
In terms of the people element,
Yeah, where digital platforms almost take over. I mean, we continue to have a different thing to log in for every. So I log in for my banking, log in to charge a car, log in to find out where I'm going, log in to buy a train ticket. Everything's done on these different digital platforms, but I have to key my data in to start one of them every time. I don't have a digital passport. Do you see us ever getting to that point? Or?
No, and I tell you why. You're going to love this, Michael, but the reason that we love Roma and working with you guys, and I've said it from day one, is because your boots on the ground and you're highly engaged with the industry. I think I mentioned this on the podcast when I was on with you, that, you know, there's not a networking event that I go to in the country where there isn't someone from Roma there, and it's always like seeing a familiar face. And I know you guys have obviously got lending to offer, but it's nice having that familiar face and engaging with the team on the ground, and you just don't get that from digital platforms, which is where we're trying to bridge the gap between the completely automated digital AI sort of world and the conversations that happen, you know, face to face. UK Homes Network works in that sense where we can actually we can pair people up and introduce people, and they can promote themselves digitally, but it's only ever meant as a follow-up tool between networking events or face-to-face interactions. And I see this with sort of social media more widely, is that they've moved away from the social element of social media to information and content-based media. So unless you've got, you know, extremely high standards of video content that's being pumped out 3 times a day, it's quite difficult to cut through to the market as a beginner, you know, just posting on social media. So it almost creates an extreme at one end and an extreme at the other. And what we've saw in terms of launching UK Homes Network is there is a niche and there is a space between the two extremes. It doesn't have to be that one or the other. So yeah, that's just my opinion on it. But I'm sure there's, you know, much techier guys than me. Maybe Adam might disagree.
I think it's really interesting because I think there was a big sort of clamour within when sort of the commercial finance world was trying to understand where it needed to go in its pathway for technology. It was a lot around the boom of the app. So obviously your app makes sense because of the gap in the market, and networking is such a key part of our business, and knowing people and people being really open for advice and all of that sort of side of it. But from the finance point of view, it was like we have to have an app out there, and that was a sort of 2 year craze, I think, where competitors and were looking at getting apps to market, but it was an app to market but without an end product. And so actually what we believe is that our sort of application process for, we have a lot of brokers that do business with us. It should be seamless. They should know exactly the steps. All of the steps should make sense, and we should be proactive in how we manage those applications, so the worst case you can have for our side is a surprise midway through. If we have to have a difficult conversation, we have it early, because actually usually there's a way around it or a way forward that we can do, because we've got the adaptability to do it. So when it comes to taking that ethos into a digital platform, it's easier for some of our products than others, and we're looking to explore ways that our partners can interact directly with us, and do the application process. Where it comes to the development side of it, where it is that personable touch, we are being more cautious. Instead of going, right, we're going to launch that app, we're going to do this, we're going to be all digital and flash and fancy, but actually the end product is that they might want to talk about their development. They might want to pick our brains. We've got very, very experienced underwriters that not only deal with the funding, but also deal with the drawdown elements as well. So they know these projects. So the relationship managers, stick with our customers. It's not we fund and we leave you to it. So that kind of networking, and that is so crucial. And to find a way of doing that via systems is difficult, which is why we've been cautious, rather than just launching saying this is the cookie cutter way that you have to take finance with us. That's not how all of our customers want to operate. So we're excited about moving forward with how how third parties and customers can interact with us, but we're being purposely cautious that we're not just going, right, everyone's getting an app, let's get an app, and then no one uses the app because they want to speak to someone. And it's that balance and that personal touch that's so crucial to us and so crucial to our kind of core beliefs of how we do lending right.
And what you're both actually saying is that there's no point following the trend of whatever the technology trend is at the time, unless you're laser focused on how that will help your target audience, either new market or existing customer base. Without it, you're just paying for an app to be developed, to be deleted in 12 months.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. I think as well, there was a point on the other slide, I just wanted to, we don't have to go backwards, but about, do we see it as replacement for people, AI? I think just as a business leader, it's important to say that we never see AI as a replacement for people. We see it as an opportunity for people to do more value add. So if in 2025 you're still using people to key in or analyze, a bit like Chris said before, what data do we want them to? Are we going to say that we'll take AI analyzed data on this because we want to plow all our resource into a human touch, given the benefit of viewing this one? It's just to allow our people to do more as technology increases their own lives. It should be enhancing the work life as well. So I think for us, and it opens up that if you think at Roma, we're going 15 years, and until Nathan joined, or Adam, 3 years ago, nobody worked in a technology role. Now 10% of our business work in data and tech, because we see that so now that's 10% of our business has a completely different career trajectory to what we had previously. So it all comes back to knowing that you're doing something that is enhancing your business. And I think you two made a really valid point. Just move into the next slide, please. Just conscious we're in the last 10 minutes, but the future trend is really interesting. We talked about where we are at the moment and how we got here. What do you see as being any of the future trends? Obviously, one of the things that I'm really interested in is about cyber attacks. That's what you were saying on bank statements before, Adam. People are very wary about the data being out there.
I think from a technology point of view, and from a kind of selling your business point of view, we're out there. Chris, as he sees us at all of the events, we're a presence in the market, and the bigger you get, well. Absolutely, the bigger
events.
The bigger you are, the bigger the risk you are, and I think there's that point where you're not big enough to have loads of people working purely in cybersecurity, but you're also not small enough that you can go under the radar. And I think we put a lot of resource into cyber attacks and to risk management and protecting the business. We've outsourced that because we believe that their expertise of their focus is the right thing to do. And what Chris says is focus on what you're good at, focus what you know, and having someone that can a team of people that we outsource to that allows us to do that. I think the more you open yourselves up on websites and have a connection to your data, the bigger the risk that you get. But I think if you take sensible steps, that colleagues are aware that opening a link is the fastest form of allowing someone, a bad actor in, and that then you can mitigate that as much as possible. I'll be interested, Chris, from your point of view about how you protect yourselves and that, and also from links within the network as well. I presume it's quite a big risk from your side.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the main motivators for a cyber attack is to obtain data, and particularly with a social media platform, it might be perceived that we obtain a huge amount of data. Actually, it's the opposite. We've seen social media platforms take a huge, significant amount of data, and then there's always the rumor, is your phone listening to you? Why is it presenting ads at certain times when you've literally just had a conversation about something? We've gone the other way, where we've decided that we don't need that much data. We just need an email address to keep in contact with our customers and to understand what it is that they're in the platform for. So we have kept the risk to a minimum from that perspective, in the sense that there's not a lot for people to gain from our platform. But in terms of payments and bank details and the paid elements within the platform, we've opted to use the best in the industry in terms of online payment processes to offset that risk against the business, to someone that I'm the king of delegation. If someone's got a better way of doing something, then I want to rely on them. So we use Stripe for all our payments. They manage that. In terms of the security, that the developers are constantly auditing our security and ways to get through. Obviously, if someone's not a property professional, we're able to verify them where they are in the country based on their IP address, which we don't obviously store that data, but it just gives us an indication of where they're coming from, and then we make sure that everyone is who they say they are within the platform. So yeah, we're quite tight on that, and make sure that we're doing everything as to the highest standard we should be.
Yeah, thank you. Well, the one thing that AI can't solve is there's still only 60 minutes in an hour, and we're rapidly coming to the end of ours. That's okay. So if we just flick to the next slide, we have got 5 key takeaways from today. And we can't get this. If you just flick to the next slide, please. Here we go. So I think technology is transforming property finance. There were some really good examples from both Adam from the lender's point of view and Chris from the external lens as well, and also as a tech entrepreneur himself. The current trends, we said digital platforms and AI really are starting to play their part across that ecosystem, and never should they all try and do the same thing all at once. It's about finding what they're good at. AI and machine learning into underwriting. I think Chris made a fantastic point today, which is you've got to say which bit do you want a conscious decision on, and that's your human touch, and which bit are you comfortable with the AI. And a business being clear about that will mean that there's no muddying of the waters. The rise of digital platforms has enabled people to engage with other property professionals at different points in the journey. UK Homes Network being a fantastic example of that. And on the future trends, I think the big thing I got from today is authenticity, regardless of what the future trends are. Authenticity about what you're trying to solve for your customer base and or your prospective new market before you even do anything, and then harness whatever the future trend is at that time. It took Roma 2 years to be ready for our tech journey. It took Chris a long time to get ready to deploy what he wanted to deploy. Now, we did have it open for questions today, and I've noticed a good friend of Roma and Mike Turner has put on here. He didn't actually put a question, but a very nice comment, but basically saying, regardless of what we're talking about, the fact that you can speak to people when you need to speak to them is the art of good business. And that is what helps him pick the people he wants to go into business with. So technology, and I know Mike Turner has got really good internal controls through tech to enable him to grow his business. He still emailed me, text me that, well, he actually messaged me on their Instagram, that's how tech advanced we are, to ask if I was going to a property investor show. And then has also said it still wants to speak to people face to face. So I think there's a real piece for everybody. Relationships is the art of good business, but technology can help us do more business and in the right way. Adam, Chris, thank you very much for joining us today. I certainly got a lot from it. I was a bit nervous. I think I had a bit of imposter syndrome at the start, with it being all about technology. If you haven't spoke to anybody at Roma Finance, please reach out and touch. But I will implore you from today, if you've not engaged with UK Homes Network, with Chris Tremlett, get in contact direct. We have got, with regards to the platform, we have got, I feel like I'm at the end of the One Show or something, right at the end, where I've got to squeeze everything in. We have got another one coming up, another webinar coming through. Really interesting one with Jay and Piotr from Hammered Auctions. Will be joining Scott Marshall. That's the art about buying properties at auction, which I know is a hot topic at this moment in time. So please get yourself signed up to that. You can watch our last webinar and this one again if you didn't write as many notes as I did on our YouTube channel. Make sure you get in contact with Chris make sure you get in contact with Roma again. If we flick to this is how you can do it. There we go. We look forward to speaking to you, and enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, guys.